What a tragedy to go through 4 years of school, tens of thousands of dollars, all this time, your youth, your
Yeah.
best years as far as like malleability in your brain. Like what a tragedy to like not um like capitalize on that.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Jesse Nyberg Podcast. Today I have on a super talented designer that's actually been a pretty big inspiration of mine in terms of just design and typography. It's Roy Cranston. So how you doing, man?
Hey, I'm good. Thanks for having me. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, pretty good. I'm a little bit tired. I went out yesterday, but that's why I try not to book this super early. So I'm not completely dead.
Same boat. Yeah, I was out and about, uh, kind of humming around yesterday. So I got all
Yeah,
sunburned and stuff. I'm all like nasty, but yeah, no,
yeah.
it's good to be here.
You're on the East Coast, right?
I'm central Midwest right now.
Oh,
I'm in
okay.
Wisconsin at the moment. Yeah, yeah.
Have you always been from there?
I'm born and raised in Wisconsin, yes. And then I work for a studio in New York, but
Yeah.
pandemic, everyone's like dispersed. We don't really see the need right now to like be in studio. So we all work from home, and I have family back here in Wisconsin, obviously, and friends. So
Hmm.
it kind of seemed like the play. So I'll be here for a little while and ultimately head back to New York.
Yeah, it's nice too. Like you're working at a New York job, but you're only having to pay like for Wisconsin like things, you know?
Dude, yeah, everything's dirt cheap here. It's so great.
Yeah.
We're saving a lot of money.
Yeah, because I think that's why I thought you were in the New York because the studio, I was kind of checking it out a little bit more. Have you ever worked there or have you always worked there in the pandemic?
No, I don't have worked there. So I started with them summer of 2019, right after I graduated from college.
Okay.
And I was kind of there like short. I wasn't really sure. It was initially a short-term thing.
Hmm.
But then it materialized, and I was in New York with them for a few months, and then
Yeah.
2020 hit, obviously, and then we just shifted to work from home like start of March, end of February, and that's been the story ever since.
Hmm. Do you like that though? I'm working freelance now for now, but when I was working in like the office, I really preferred being at home compared to the office.
Oh, okay. I'm used to it now, so that's usually my answer. I don't know if I
Yeah.
like it or dislike it because I think there's great things on both sides. Like,
Mm.
um, there are many projects where I'm like, dang, like I wish I was sitting down with the team. We were like riffing back and forth, and
Yeah.
it like we hop in videos all the time and stuff, but I do miss that. And like being able to put shit up on the walls and like
Hmm.
just like this like the just uninhibited stuff. But yeah, obviously the freedom is like sick. Like I that's great too. So it is good and bad. I don't know if I would change
Yeah.
anything necessarily, but I am looking forward to like going back also.
I think you make a good point about the like riffing and stuff and like being in that cool environment. I think a place like where you work, I would prefer being there more rather than like my last position. I was kind of like the designer, you know, so it was like in house. So it wasn't
Yeah,
like we were doing those cool like breakouts or anything. It's just me doing stuff anyway, you know, so might as well be at home.
that's understandable. Yeah. If you're like a workhorse and you like if you really just want to like zone out or zone in, zone out, hone in, I don't know what the word is, but yeah, I
Either one.
I totally get that. Yeah, 100% understand.
So is that pretty much, you know, what you've been up to like this past year, just doing mostly a lot of the work at the studio?
Yeah, like that's really it. I haven't, I mean, I don't know how much people keep up with me, but I haven't been doing a lot of personal work.
Yeah.
It's like most of my energy has been going either to the studio or a couple like odd things here and there. But yeah, that's really been it. And there might be more stuff in the future. I like the gears are always turning. I'm always trying
Yeah.
to come up with like personal projects, but yeah, it's been like fully on the studio side for me.
So since you work there and it's like a, you know, creative studio where you're getting in projects that are probably like pretty fulfilling, does that mean you probably don't do like a lot of like side work, right? Like freelance or anything like that?
I don't do any freelance really.
Yeah.
I might pick up like an odd job for like a buddy or something, but
Hmm.
I'm very much like at the studio. So if someone hits me up, I'm like, cool, you like my stuff. I work with a small team.
Right.
Let's do it. Let's do it with the team. And that's kind of been the story. It's happening more and more lately.
Hmm.
So that's how like some projects are coming up. If I was more freelance, maybe they would all be like myself, but
Yeah.
I totally prefer it this way. Like I have the freedom of like being myself and like being my creative self, but with the resources and ammunition of like a really capable team. So it's like
Yeah.
the perfect balance.
And like actual, like a bigger budget and like facilities and stuff, like a little bit
Yeah,
more.
and like we probably end up getting like to charge more, I guess, because like we're a studio, like
Right.
instead of just me, I'm so bad with money. I'm like, yeah, I'll do it for $200. Like I'm so bad with
Yeah.
that. But like you can't get anything from a studio for $200. Sometimes you
No.
can't get an email back if your budget's $200. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Straight into they'll send it right into the like spam or the trash can.
Yeah. We should get up like a filter, like if there's
Yeah. That just looks
AI.
for a dollar amount. And if it's under a certain amount. Yeah. Cause I know
Yeah.
some people, I don't know if it's like this with, works. It's kind of like if you work there, you're almost like not allowed to do. Like you're expected to bring stuff to the studio rather than like steal, I guess, the work from the studio or whatever.
Yeah. And it's not even like it doesn't really feel like you're not allowed. It's like, why wouldn't you bring it into the studio? Like
Hmm.
that's what we're all doing. That's what everyone else does. That's how all the work comes about.
Yeah.
Like people got to come to the studio, or if they come to an individual, like it's going through the team
Yeah.
regardless. Which prior to this, I didn't even really realize that was a thing unless you're like, it's different because most, artists and designers, it's like very apparent if they're freelance or if they're at a studio.
Hmm.
And maybe I'm like in a gray area where people can't tell, even though it's like in my bio where I work and all that stuff. But usually I just didn't really realize this was a thing. And I think it's like a really, really great way of working, especially if you have maybe like, God, I don't want to call myself high profile, but someone with like a lot of followers that like might bring in work that
Hmm.
could in theory be getting a lot of freelance on the side. It's like that's a great add to your team to have them also like bringing in work and stuff.
Yeah. I also feel like it validates or maybe gives you like a higher tier in terms of like negotiating like salary and things like that. Like, oh, well, look on the side, like I could be whatever X amount of projects. So like I need this amount of money to make it kind of I don't know, worthwhile to work at the studio or whatever.
Yeah, I could see that being the case if I was like, honestly, I'm so happy where like the shit that I would have to do if I was freelance, I almost don't even consider that because like consider that alternative option because man, the people I work with are so good. Like if
Hmm.
someone hits me up, I can just like be like, "Hey, I work with a team. I'm gonna connect you with my partner," and that's it. And then I don't have to do like any of the like the freelance bullshit, that no one
Yeah.
wants to do. It's just like it's just a golden scenario. I guess I'm really fortunate.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like the studio and then like a cool studio like that you work at, that and then like just being like a really successful like freelance and like for the most part things are smooth. Those are kind of like from what I've seen are like ideal kind of situations for designers. Like I think the
Yeah,
positions people get burnt out in are like some that I've had in the past and others where it's like not as fulfilling creatively. However, you're using a lot of your like creative power or whatever. So it's hard for you to do like stuff on the side.
yeah, that's totally it. People ask me for advice a lot. Like people are like, "Oh, I'm just graduating. I kind of want to
Hmm.
do maybe what you did. Like, where should I go? Like, should I freelance? Should I find a studio?" And I never really know what to say because I don't really feel like super well equipped to give advice.
Yeah.
So I usually like I put an asterisk on it and say, I'm not an expert, but small studio is awesome. Like I just say like I try to tell them like do what I did because man, I'm just so incredibly fortunate. I can't count my blessings enough because
Hmm.
yeah, for all the reasons you just said and that I said, like especially right out of school, man. Like I'm so glad I'm not like in the machine at like some huge agency or something that's just pumping out stuff like you said, and then you got no juice left at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I was not well equipped to just dive into the freelance world. I could maybe like make a pretty picture, but that's like 1/10 of the battle as a freelancer. Like there's so
Yeah.
much more uphill stuff you got to do. So man, it's just yeah, like you said, the ideal.
Hmm. For sure. Yeah, that's interesting what you're saying about like, you know, to the outside perspective, like you are well equipped in terms of like your creative skills. And I talked about this with Harry Vincent. We were saying when you do freelance, it's like you almost have to put as much time into knowing about like business and marketing and like other things, just and have the creative skills to back it up, because you need one to get the other, you know? And if you put too much
Hmm.
time into either one, you know, if you're all about business, your design skills may start lacking, or vice versa. It's like a weird balance.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a dance that I am just not interested in doing.
Yeah. So, do you have any plans then, I guess, with like, I know you said you're always keeping the gears moving, but do you have any plans in the future that you've seen for your social media or anything like that? Because I know you've been pretty inactive and a lot of people are wondering where you went.
That's funny. People are keeping tabs.
Yeah.
Um, I I finished. There's this project I have under my belt that people like to put a label on me for, was like the year of posters, and that's
Hmm.
cool. And I think it's a great project, and it did a lot for me. But since then, I've really tried not to put too much expectation on myself or anything, because that project did not come out of like, it's not like brute force. Like that came out of a moment that it felt right, and I went for
Yeah.
it. And I love the results of that, and I like that approach to things. And I'm fortunate to be in a situation where I don't have to be scrambling for like the next project that I'm going to do. So I'm always like playing a little bit of chess, like trying to put pieces in place to put myself in a position where like inspiration may strike, or I
Hmm.
might get excited by something. But no, there's nothing at the moment. I am, what's today? Sunday. So in a week, I'm flying to Colorado, and I'm doing a 1 week solo retreat
Hmm.
with like, it's technically like a meditation retreat, but I'll try to meditate. I'm not like good at it or anything, but it's like no internet. There's a little bit of electricity, some running water. I'm in a cabin by myself in the mountains, no phone, nothing. I'm going to have a journal. I'm going to see what comes of
That's
that.
cool.
But the whole point is no expectations. So
Yeah.
maybe 7 days go by and I come out and I'm like, I'm just ready to get out of here. That's fine. But if I come out with a bunch of ideas and like things that excite me, that's great too. I'm not going to be more happy or upset either way it goes.
Yeah.
But that's part of like the chess that I'm trying to put myself in a situation, but I don't have like, I'm not expecting anything in return.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's crazy because something like that almost seems counterintuitive. Do you know, like advancing your career or whatever, but that like recharge or like unplugging from everything and maybe coming up with like ideas, or maybe not, even if it just makes you feel better. I think that people underestimate that, you know, in terms of
Hmm.
like you might come back and feel like you took a year-long vacation just because that you weren't on your phone and things like that.
Hmm.
Because you can
Yeah.
get that stuff can get messy, you know, you can get stressed with all the notifications and whatnot.
Seriously, like I think there's so much value in just like pausing.
Hmm.
And uh, I've talked about this before, but like just being bored. I'm going there for a week, and it's basically 7 days of boredom.
Yeah.
Because like I'm not bringing a guitar, I'm not bringing anything to entertain myself other than like what's upstairs here.
Hmm.
So, and that's what I have to deal with for 7 days, like whatever's in my head, and it's going to be a lot of work, but the only thing I know is that I'm going to learn a lot, whether it's about myself. Oh, it'd be about myself. Yeah, I'll learn a lot about myself. But yeah, no expectation. It's going to be wild. I might come out like a hermit and reject society, or I might
Yeah.
be the exact same. I have no idea. It's a week. Like it's not. I'm not going away for 5 years. It's a week. I don't expect anything. So it'll be a good
Yeah.
exercise. Because I think about like if I was in this room right now and everything was taken away from me and all I had to do was just like sit here like with my head, like I can make it like a couple hours before I started like scraping the walls or like trying to
Yeah.
occupy my mind in some way. So I have no clue what's beyond that barrier on like day 1, day 2, day 3, all the way to day 7. I don't know if it's going to get harder or easier, but I mean, to circle back here, I'm hoping it's a tool for some creative um, thing. I don't know what it'll be, but yeah, that's anyway. I feel like I'm rambling now, but yeah,
No,
that's what
you're
I'm doing.
good. That's interesting. I mean, I always wonder, you don't allow yourself to get past that like super, super like boredom, so it's
Hmm.
like you almost have to force yourself by going to a place that's gonna, is it like a thing that is it like some kind of company that does this, or are you just renting like like Airbnb or something like that?
It's technically like a Buddhist temple place.
Oh, okay.
Not even technically, that's just what it is. I'm not like a Buddhist or I'm not studying Buddhism or anything,
Hmm.
but that's just what it happened to be. Are you familiar with the musician and songwriter Mike Posner?
Yeah, yeah. He was
I
like
was
on the radio like a lot, right? Like 5 years ago or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, and he
Yeah.
he kind of like cycles in and out of like the spotlight, I guess. I don't know, but
Yeah.
I like him a lot. I like him. I also like his music, but I really like him. And he went and did this thing. And
Hmm.
he was on a podcast and he talked about it. I was like, that's really cool. I need to do that, just because I think I'm a little scared to do it, and that's probably like a reason to do it.
Yeah.
Um, and I've always said I wanted to do something like this. And I was on a call with a buddy and he's like, well, why don't you just do it? Dude? Like, just go to the website and sign up. And it's like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, I forget. Like we can do whatever we want. So yeah, I just signed up and did it.
Didn't he do that thing where he like walked across the United States or something like that?
Yeah. He walked across America.
That's wild.
With, yeah, just to like see it, just to do it. I think it was the same idea. It was like, I should, like, there's no real reason. There's no real expectation other than I just want to do it. Um,
Yeah.
and I think it's one of those things where on the surface, it sounds like a lot of monotony, and it probably is.
Mhm.
And it doesn't really sound too eventful, but you're going to find like all these little moments and meaning and learning in something like that. And I would say there's a lot of parallels between that and like locking yourself in a cabin for a week. Not that what I'm doing is like
Yeah.
locking myself in a cabin. Like I can go outside, it'll be fun, but yeah, I
I
think there's
think
some parallels there.
the difference is it's almost like the cabin thing is probably harder in your mind, and then the other one's obviously a lot harder on your body and stuff because you're actually, putting in all
Hmm.
those miles. I almost think that to an extent you can argue that the walking one's easier, even though it like hurts your feet and it's like probably painful. Like some people I don't think could handle the 7 days of like just nothing because they've never let themselves get there, and maybe they're scared of
Yeah.
who they become or whatever it may be.
I could see if you offered someone the choice of like walk across America or lock yourself with nothing for a week. I mean, I'll have food and water, but like lock yourself
Yeah.
in there for a week. I'm sure there are people that are like, yeah, I'd rather walk across America, which to me is crazy. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think walking across America would be harder. I think that'd be a tougher mental journey also. Um, but yeah, that is kind of a wild thing to think about. As you said, most people don't let themselves get there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool though. I'm curious to maybe I'll chat about it. I want to hear how that went after you come back. Um,
Yeah, we'll
oh,
circle back. And yeah.
oh yeah. I wanted to kind of bring it back a little bit to, I'm sure, I know you've talked about this stuff. I watched your Chris Do interview and a couple, like just seeing stuff that you've done on Instagram and things. And I just wondered, because I've talked to multiple people that have done the kind of 365 project thing. And I was wondering, you said that it was like the right vibe and it wasn't forced. What made you feel like you wanted to do that in the first place? Like, did anything inspire you to do that?
Um, yeah, I think I was inspired in like the general sense of like wanting to make cool stuff. I wasn't necessarily inspired to like work really hard or like,
Mm-hmm.
some people get like that flash and they're like, wow, I got to make all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was more like it's the chess thing a little bit. Chess, man. I sound really
The
like full of
mastermind.
myself, but like maybe checkers is more like it.
Checkers.
But
Yeah.
um, yeah, so at the end, it was 2019 that I did it. So at the end of 2018, I was like, think, it's like New Year's or New Year's Eve, and you're kind of like,
Mm-hmm.
you're thinking about like the last year and the new year to come.
Yeah.
And I realized in a year I was going to be done with school. I was most likely, I mean, hopefully going to be like a working man at a
Yeah.
studio or freelance or something. And I was like, that was like really freaky. I was like, all I've ever known my entire life is school. All I've ever known is like the bumpers in the runway and you're on the path and
Yeah.
everyone just tells you what to do. And I was like, man, how can what's the best way to equip myself for like the unknown, like the black hole, the void after
Yeah.
I'm done with school. And the only way I could think like in my head that made sense was to be as good at what I do as possible. That felt like the best recipe for success.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized I was like, I don't know anything about design. I don't even know what graphic design really is. And this was halfway through my senior year, basically. I had no clue what was going on. And so I was like a backwards process of like, okay, where am I going to be? I'm going to be at a studio. How do I get to be at a studio? Okay, I need to be really good. How
Mm-hmm.
do I get really good? The best way I could think of to do that was just not take a break, basically, like do something
Right.
every day. And by no means am I the first person to do this. Like I was on the later wave of when it was like kind of cool.
Yeah.
Sorry for people doing every days now, but everyone's doing it, but which is great. But yeah, so that's what I did. I was like, without more thought than that. That's when I just committed to it. And I was like, I'm just going to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And that was it. I didn't really think about how much work it was going to be or anything. I was like, I'll just take it one day at a time.
Right.
Tomorrow's January 1st. I'll just start then.
It's kind of like you were thinking of it from like the use it or lose it like kind of mindset. Like if I don't have this structure to make myself practice every day, I may not, like become the good designer I want to be, kind of.
Exactly. Like what a tragedy to go through 4 years of school, tens of thousands of dollars, all this time, your youth,
Yeah.
your best years as far as like malleability in your brain. Like what a tragedy to like not like capitalize on that.
Right.
And I kind of felt like I hadn't for 4 years in school. So I was like, okay, it's go time. It's 100 miles an hour until next year, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. And you were, I think, a big inspiration for a lot of people, not only design wise, like in the way that you were doing things, your typography, your composition, but to do that challenge. I know you said you weren't the first ones, but I definitely think you were one of the like case studies for why you should do that thing or why it may be a good idea, because you didn't go into it like with a malicious approach. Like I want to get like famous on social media or whatever. It just happened to be like a byproduct of like hard work and getting better.
That's a great point. I mean, I guess you could maybe put that under the umbrella of like authenticity or something. Like
Mm-hmm.
people can smell bullshit from a mile away through their
Right.
screens, everything. So I guess as like a piece of advice, if anyone's listening that's like in the position that I was, like, don't do it to get more followers.
Mm-hmm.
Like do it to get good. And then the followers will come. But even if you're worried about followers, like you're already off on the wrong foot. Like don't worry about how many people see your work. Just worry about who sees it. Like if you want to get it in front of the right people or something. But yeah, 100%. Like most people do it because they're like, they want some stupid number on their Instagram. It's so dumb. That's why I think Instagram is one of the downsides. Obviously it's like so polarizing, and good and bad, but yeah. Man, I almost deleted my Instagram when I was done with the year project, because I was like, I don't want this number hanging over my head and dictating how I think about myself or the work or having any influence in what I do from this point on. And some parts of me still wish I had. Some parts of me, I'm glad I kept it. Like, I don't know. I couldn't, if I had the ideal, it would be followers weren't a thing and Instagram was a different kind of platform, and I could have still got just as good as I did, or still had the same experience I had without the social side of it.
Yeah.
But most people won't do it for those reasons, even if it means doing everything. It's like most people are like, if I want to do something every day, I'm going to share it because why not? It doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
But it ends up kind of being like a double-edged sword, I guess.
It's good because you can get constructive feedback and maybe it can give you the confidence to keep going when people are, being nice. And if you're not like doing it for pure like vanity, but like you're saying with the double-edged sword, it can also make you feel like, because we've all been there where you post something and it's like does bad, and there's no way to prove that it does bad in terms of analytics because it's a worse design. It's just, it could be the time of day, the amount of people,
Yeah.
you know, like how much engagement it got. So it's kind of like if you start putting value on like yourself as a creative or as a designer through like pure numbers, that's I think when you start to get kind of maybe insecure and just like even like depressed if it gets like too far, you know?
Yeah. It's so weird because the right way to feel insecure, if there is one, is it's because someone criticizes you. But that's never the case on Instagram. There's never criticism on Instagram. It's all just like, ooh, great job. Like you made a pretty poster. Like that's what it is. It's just an echo chamber of that. And no one ever tells you like if you're not doing great. Even if you're not doing great, everyone like applauds you. So the insecurities come from all the wrong places. They come from an algorithm. And as you said, all these variables that either you can't control or don't have the energy to control or are constantly changing under your feet and moving targets that we can't always be optimizing for. So I think that's a bit of the sketchy part for like new designers or people coming out of school is the validation kind of comes from the wrong places, and then the invalidation and the insecurities come from the wrong places too. Like it's kind of a weird flip thing.
I watched this YouTuber. He's not a designer, but something he said really stuck with me because he said when you're setting goals, they should be like input based, not output based. So your goal should be, you know, like for me, make a podcast every week should be the goal. The goal shouldn't be the podcast gets 1,000 views every week, right? Because I can't control that part, but I can control the work part of it.
That is a perfect way of saying it. Yeah, that's a perfect summary because you can apply it to so many things rather than having to specifically talk about YouTube or Instagram or I mean even like in athletics, it's like don't worry about your time, worry about like how good you did or something. You know, I think that applies to everything.
Yeah, and it's a good way to live, and even though it's hard sometimes, overall it's going to benefit you a lot more to just, it's like obtainable. You know, this other stuff is completely out of your control. One thing I wanted to ask you about the project is when you would, because I know there was probably some days that were a little harder than others to like get the inspiration. When you would sit down each day when you were working on that 365 project, did you usually have an idea before you like got into the actual like work of it, or was it kind of just free form?
Almost never. I almost never knew what it was going to be before I sat down. And that's because I didn't have the bandwidth to constantly be thinking about it. What I do have though, it was like a huge backlog of ideas that I could maybe pull from. But it was rarely premeditated unless something super cool happened that day and it's like, that's going to be my poster or whatever. But I guess that kind of counts. Like having I had tons of notes and like I would save everything because I'm like, you never know when you're going to like hit the drought mentally, creatively. So I always, that's the checkers, I guess, is like always preparing for that moment. So that's a really good question. It sounds heady to say I never like had an idea and I just came up with it all in the moment. But like that was often it was like sink or swim, I guess. Like I had to just sit down and do it, and whatever came to my head is what made it in the poster.
Yeah, and once you're doing something so often, even if you don't realize it, you probably had a lot of really good like subconscious ideas, you know? Like you may not have thought like today's going to be the poster with the car in it, but in your head, the first thing you thought of was the car because 2 weeks ago or whatever.
Yeah, you definitely develop a lot of like mechanisms for coming up with ideas just because out of pure like survival, you need to. So you definitely, you develop like a toolbox of ways to come up with things because it was way harder on the first 30 days to come up with ideas, even though in theory there were more because I hadn't done them all. Rather than the last month, I felt like I had so many ideas and like I could have done a year's worth of ideas. I had so much shit that I could have done. But the other side of that is it's really easy to fall into habits. And I had to constantly check myself that I wasn't relying on the same crutches, whether that was compositional. As you said, like there's all these algorithms that tell you like what worked and what didn't. And it'd be so easy to go see like what my most liked post was. and it can be really formulaic and really cookie cutter, and it can get that way really quick. And I think a lot of people do that and aren't honest enough with themselves to realize it. So that's one thing I'm proud of, is like all the crazy shit I tried. I think there's like a couple, maybe like, I hate the word style, but like there's a couple styles that are maybe attributed to like shit that I did in that year that people have basically ripped off and made their entire life out of that one exploration I did. But yeah, that's the thing I'm most proud of, is all the different things I tried, and because I just didn't want to like get caught being the cookie cutter guy, the formula guy that could just pump out posters for the rest of the time.
Yeah, I think I like that you kind of brought that up, the idea of some of the styles that you were exploring getting, passed off out into the community, and it being the style, I don't know if this is what you had in mind, that I saw a lot was kind of like the big type and image like style stuff out of like the explorations you were doing. I saw that get ripped off, or just like inspiration, whatever you want to call it, so much more compared to a lot more of the like analog looking like scan and like weird type stuff that you were doing, because I feel like that stuff to like a common eye was a lot harder to recreate.
Yeah. To that point, like if they're a little harder to recreate, when people do end up recreating them, they end up looking just like my shit, because they maybe aren't, like I had to wade and drudge through so much shit to get to like the ideas that manifested into like those posters and stuff. And then other people, and it's fine, I try not to get mad about it, but other people see that and they're like, cool, I'm just gonna like recreate that. But if they didn't drudge through all the same shit, they don't understand or see how to like make it their own, and they scrape the frosting off the surface, and then now that's their poster. And that's fine, because I've done it. We all do it. I like it's just that ego thing that I just have to like let go and just be like, that it's fine. And it sucks because I moved to New York, and I was exposed to this entire visual world and met all these people, and it informed so much of the different ideas I tried. And then again, not trying to get mad about it, but like then just some kid can just like go see it and be like, oh, that's cool, I'm gonna copy that style. And then they make 365 posters that look just like a nightmare version of one idea I tried. It's even like one thing I would do with my friends is we would do like speed runs where it's like who could go on Instagram and find a copycat the fastest. Because there was a period where, man, you could just hit the explore feed and it was like that, like you said, it's just stuff that just look alike. But or there are times when I look at like the explore page and I'm like, is that mine? Did I make that? Is that someone like resharing my work? And then I open it, it's like, no, that's just, it looks just like something that I made. Like they had all same decisions, but it's just different color, or like not even different color, it's just like different words. It's like, wow, okay. Right there. But that is how people learn. The ego part of me just wants credit, which is terrible, but yeah, I'll admit it. The ego part of me wants credit. Yeah.
And I mean, I don't think you're like, a bad person inherently for not wanting someone to copy your work. It's just, I think that comes with the territory. It's like inevitable at a certain point. And I think, at the end of the day, they know what's going on, like everyone knows what's going on. If you in my head, I wouldn't be able to feel fulfilled if I built my whole thing off of something that in my head I knew wasn't exactly mine, because we all get inspiration, but you can cross the line at a certain point.
I think there are a lot of people that don't know where the line is. So like you're maybe a little bit more like self-aware and conscious of that. And I think that's just like a different like camp that some people fall into. And maybe you can like get into that camp, like you can grow and get better. There's a lot of my work that's really derivative. And at the time, maybe I didn't realize it was, or I knew it was, but I didn't really have that extra layer of consciousness that like made me like self-aware about it or whatever. So that's why I try not to get too hung up on it, because it's someone maybe that's learning or taking baby steps and they just don't understand where the line is, or that there is a line.
It's just with Instagram, it's social media, that stuff probably would have been happening. Let's say social media was structured differently and you had to have like an X amount of following, or like, let's say you were one of the designers out of like 500, right, that can share their work on this platform. People would probably be taking influence from it or copying it on their own and just having it as like a practice. But now that it can be shared, that's where it runs into like, I don't know, since it's shared, it seems like official, right? Like they copied it for like an official project, even though most people on Instagram at the end of the day, it's almost like their, high fidelity sketchbook in a sense of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we are just in like uncharted territory as far as like, as I see it, like as far as what inspiration is, what sketching means, what design means. Like, man, we're in uncharted territory with a generation that is like untested and does not have to navigate things the same way that past generations have.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think about this stuff all the time because I'm like I was right in the thick of it. Yeah, it's all really wild. I feel like you could write like a book on this stuff. And I bet there's going to be like the Instagram era. There'll be a book about that and shit.
Right.
Like there was like the Tumblr era. Now there's the Instagram era and who knows? Like we are the next generation. We will, like all these people that are like blowing up on Instagram, like that's who's going to be in the conversation in like 20 years or 15 years about like what that era of design signifies and like who influenced it. It's really wild to think about, but like, yeah, kind of right in the thick of it. I'm curious and excited to like see how all this shit plays out. I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm excited too. And that's kind of like why I feel like, what I'm doing with this, it's almost like anthropology to a certain extent, like no one's ever covered these types of people. So like there'll be some kind, even if it never becomes like, this big thing, it'll be there for the people that like care about it, and that's enough.
Totally. Yeah. Like I just think I'm like, we have all these design heroes. I'm like, man, what I wouldn't give to hear them on a bunch of podcasts. Like, this is just like, not that I'm someone's design hero, but like what you're saying is like, yeah, finally we have this generation that's actually going to be like documented. Like everyone else is a mystery. Like past generations is a mystery. You see the UPS logo and you don't know shit about Paul Rand or whatever. And it's just like, you got to read a bunch of books and not even, you get like 3 books. That's all there is.
Yeah.
It's just wild. So yeah, I'm here for it. I'm excited for it. I try to just keep my antennas tuned to what all this shit that's going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I'm always trying to, you're someone that I've wanted to talk to for like, you're one of an idea I had as like probably one of the first 10 to 15 people where I was like, this is someone I'd want to talk to about this in terms of like the age and like the generation and like what we kind of, what you and myself saw like kind of manifest with this whole social media era. But I'm also not trying to keep it like too like the goal of this isn't to be strictly like graphic designers. That's it. Like I've had some photographers and I want it to be a little bit more broad in terms of like creative individuals. But it's just, I realize like I'm almost doing it to myself because these are the people I just know. It's easier for me to become a mutual with a graphic designer like yourself than a, videographer with the same amount of like clout or whatever in that world. Cause I don't know that world. So it's a more of a barrier to, there's a little bit more of a barrier in terms of like maybe the industry or the jargon, but I think as it grows, it'll be able to broaden easier because it may be more of a symbiotic relationship. Like they want to come on here and promote something or whatever it may be,
Right. Yeah. I'd like a weird question, maybe not weird, but like semi-related. Cause you're starting to get like a good amount of guests on and stuff like that. Do you ever get nervous or have you had anyone on that you were like really nervous for? Like, shit, I gotta stretch before this and like drink my water and make sure. I mean,
definitely like Aaron Draplin, that was like,
sure.
But that was like, he has like a energy that makes me nervous. I think even if he wasn't like one of my design heroes, like he's intense, So like I just kind of I just let him go, like that was kind of the interview. But a lot of people gave me good feedback on that one. They actually said that compared to some of the other ones he's done with like Adobe and like the future and things, that they felt it was different. They don't know if it was because of like the energy that I brought, but they said that he was saying different things. Like he always says the same stuff they felt on other ones.
Yeah.
So that made me feel good because that means that had value and it wasn't just another, him talking about thick lines or whatever. Like it was a little different.
Thick lines. Yeah. There's an advantage to not making people feel like they need to do their spiel, the speech that they give everywhere. Like it's maybe they have the freedom to like unhinge a little bit. And I don't know if that I don't know where that comes from. Obviously like you're doing shit for Adobe, like you're gonna like stay color within the lines, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's really cool. I have not yet watched the Draplin one, or I think I watched a segment of it, but yeah, I've been like going through all your videos trying to like catch up and take it all
cool,
in.
man. I appreciate that. And it's always good to hear when someone comes on, they're like, yeah, I caught up on these ones, rather than they're like, what is this? What am I getting into?
That's like the point I'm trying to make about like this generation. I feel like there was a period where I was maybe distancing myself from like maybe the people our age and the people that were like on Instagram and stuff, because maybe it was snobbery, or I thought I was like, dude, like I need to focus on like the greats or whatever, I need to focus on like the tried and true. But as of late, I'm way more interested in like what this is, like our generation. Like, why not be like that? That's more exciting to me. So I'm just trying to like bring it back a little bit.
I find it funny because you asked me what made me nervous, or like in my head, Draplin leaps in and beyond like the biggest guest I've talked to, or the biggest in terms of what they are. But people that like this community, like people knew like Kel Lauren and like Harry Vincent like more than like someone was like didn't even know who he was. And to me that's like, whoa, because college and stuff, right? But if you're in this self-taught world and like your heroes are through Instagram, like that totally makes sense why you'd know these people more than these other people.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So like you for example, like you may be an example of someone would be more familiar with your work than, let's say, like, if they never did any design history, like they may not know, like Saul Bass or someone like that. They may just know you from your posters, even though that guy was making posters like in the 50s or 60s or whatever it was. So it's like, it's weird.
Like that's who influenced me.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to ask you, because speaking of that, you're an inspiration of mine. Like with the stuff you were doing, I really liked a lot of the different explorations you were doing during your 365. And I was wondering, like, who are some of your biggest inspirations as a designer?
I could probably list off a ton, but I remember like the big ones were obviously like on a visual level, like David Carson, Chris Ashworth, Wolfgang Weingart. Those were like my big three. Weingart, like specifically, because I think that's like visually, but also the meat and potatoes of it, like the underlying thinking, to like treat type as geometry, maybe provoke a little bit, all that, like that irreverence. And I mean, Weingart came from an era where type was like, you don't mess with it, man. Like, I think, I don't know if he's not Swiss. He must be German, Weingart. But I should know, but I don't. But those are the things where I was like, I just felt like on Instagram, we have this pixel perfect space and world, and we're all digital designers. I'm 21, 22 years old, but I was really turned off by like the clarity of everything. I don't know. I'm talking about myself now, but yeah, those were like the big three.
Yeah.
And then when I moved to New York and started working with the people at the studio, it's a small team. So right away, I was just picking up on all these people that I didn't know about. They're throwing references around. I'm like, Jesus, like I know who Aaron Draplin is, but I don't know who the 15 other people you just listed are.
Yeah.
So that was like, when I look back at like the timeline of the work from that project, it's like really kind of mono focused to my eyes. It doesn't feel like I really explored too much until I got to New York, and I was like, wow, the lid is blown off of this thing. I didn't realize the breadth of what's out there.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I could just rattle off names like crazy, but
It's all good. Those are good.
I would say those are the big three. Vanguard is like so good. That probably my favorite. So yeah.
Yeah, I remember when I first discovered David Carson in school because, I was heavily exposed early on in school to like the kind of what David Carson was combating. Like I was looking into like Vignelli and all that kind of, only use
Yeah.
Helvetica, like Swiss design stuff. And then how
Mhm.
David Carson was making like those fonts with like Futura and Bodoni combined and like printing those
Mhm.
articles and like wingdings or whatever, like all this crazy
Yep.
shit. And I was like, wow, I never thought that. Like, it's crazy how I could be equally so inspired and interested in the things that like combat each other. Cause I like them both just as much. Like, I never want to be like that whole like gatekeeping, like never manipulate type, but I also like that like at the same time. So it's weird. Like, I feel like that's how a lot of designers are nowadays. We have such a big history to pull from that we can think like both. You can treat type like someone like Vignelli and only use 3 fonts, but you can also manipulate it like how David Carson would and create crazy like compositions and stuff.
Yeah. Like what a beautiful luxury we have to work in a space where there's polarizing theory and ideology and ways to do things,
Yeah.
and neither is right, neither is wrong, and you can oscillate between things. Man, I just like, obviously that's like art, and like that's the arts and the creative things. But man, yeah, what a, as you said, like you can love both and you can appreciate both and you can study both and learn both, and not even that there's two, but like it's a spectrum, and
Mm-hmm.
it's so much not narrow. Yeah, I think I'm just so lucky that goddamn, that I picked graphic design and not friggin' accounting.
Was that on the table?
No, I was like 4, I always wanted to be an astronaut. And then once I realized like astronauts kind of scary, I was like, no, I'm not gonna be an astronaut. And you have to be like really damn smart.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna be an astronaut. So I always thought I was gonna be an architect.
Mm-hmm.
That's just what I told myself because I love Frank Lloyd Wright. I just loved modern architecture as a kid. And I loved Ray and Charles Eames and all their projects. And I was like, okay, I'm going to be an architect. And then when I applied to college, I only applied to one college because I liked it, and they didn't have architecture, but they had graphic design. I was like, okay, I guess I'll do that. So I'm really lucky that I found something I liked.
Yeah, that's cool. So I was going to ask you a little bit about your background in design, but that answers it pretty well. I think it's interesting because what you wanted to like choose originally, it's not the same, but it's not entirely like far off. Like it makes sense that you were easily able to shift into this other one because you're still designing at the end of the day.
Yeah. All the things that made me want to be an architect, I can easily attribute to like the reasons that I enjoy graphic design too.
Mm-hmm.
I got 2 like creative parents, both artists, musicians, painters, like all that jazz. And so I was just like exposed to stuff as a kid. And I was like,
Yeah.
I think I maybe had a better understanding of the fact that like you can do that as an adult and as as a profession, that maybe most kids like just don't get. Like it's a class that you have at school. It's not a real thing.
Yeah.
And I almost never even considered the inverse of that. It's just always like every month there was a new Museum of Modern Art catalog, or there's a new artist book on the table that my mom got from the library. And I was just really well aware that that's a totally feasible path to take. So, I mean, yeah, I keep saying like, I'm so fortunate. Like, man, I feel like I just got to count my blessings, man. Like all the stars have just aligned.
Yeah.
I'm just lucky, I guess.
I wonder, because they say like when you're like really young, you're like a sponge or whatever, and everything like gets so absorbed, even if you don't know it. I wonder how much just having that stuff around like maybe made you like just have an innate more like sensibility when it comes to design and things by just having like the MoMA books or like a Frank Gehry book or something to look at. Like, because I had nothing like that, I was probably more in the boat where you said, I just thought it was like a fun thing and I was like, I'm going to try it anyway. But you knew like more maybe even if it was subconscious, like that it existed.
I think it's got to be on some level, whether
Hmm.
it's like some really underlying resonance of like visual composition or like size relationships, like
Yeah.
state, like yeah, that was like my nighttime thing. Like I didn't really play a lot of video games. I would look at the Museum of Modern Art catalogs and circle shit and draw and stuff, and I was way into it. It's like all I wanted was like a George Nelson clock and an Eames chair, and I just study them and I'd make them out of cardboard. And then I do the
Yeah.
same with like Apple products. I couldn't afford like an iPod or an iPhone or anything, so I would make them out of like paper. And I think there's on some level, as a little kid, like you're understanding the relationships. Like you don't just look at an iPod. Like you have to understand what the sizes are of things to like
Hmm.
assemble it and put it together. And I would have to like draw the screens of the iPod and like put them in. So like I really wanted the fourth generation iPod Nano. That was when they had like a slightly bigger screen. They were always colorful, but
Yeah.
they were like these tall things, and they were like a beautiful oval shape
Hmm.
from the top down. And yeah, man, I would draw, and I'd go to apple.com and I'd see every screen, like all the different pieces of the operating system, and I'd draw them all. And like you can't help but study the spacing and the colors they use and the type. Um, yeah, and I think it's just like a snowball. Like then I discovered defont.com in middle school, and like, holy shit, the
Yeah.
cap's blown off of things. I can do multiple fonts. I'm not stuck to all this shit in Microsoft Word. This is dope.
I know, it's
So it's just been
crazy.
like a snowball.
I remember using word
Yeah.
art for like shit, just like elementary school papers, and they'd get so mad because they'd say write 2 pages, and I'd take up a third of the page with like the gradient text that said like Christopher Columbus Day or whatever the project was.
Yeah. 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 Were you the kid that had like the really cool PowerPoints? Like you had to do it on like you had to do your animal report in PowerPoint. And I don't, were you the kid that had
I
like the
thought
really
they were
sweet one where
cool.
everyone was like, dude,
Yeah.
yeah. Obviously they probably weren't, but like
Yeah.
comparatively to everyone else's, like, yeah,
Like I tried, I guess was the
dude,
difference.
yeah, because that was more fun than even like doing the report or even going to recess. Was like making your PowerPoint look sick.
Yeah, I used to try to do stuff in like Windows Movie Maker, and you'd have the thing where it would spin, or like the weird like square cross dissolve, and you're
Oh
like,
yeah,
oh, so sick.
so dope. Yeah. I still remember all those clear as day,
Hmm.
from Movie Maker and then iMovie when my mom got a MacBook. Remember that was insane. My brother
Yeah.
and I used to make so much shit on there. Yeah. Like that's what like molded. That's like what molded this
Hmm.
generation that we're speaking of, are those tools and those products.
Yeah, I even used to use like weird. I can't even remember what they were called, but it was almost like Microsoft Paint, but like gamified. Like I used to have this app that I used on my dad's computer, and it was almost like a drawing game, but it was like more playful.
Yeah.
Like you'd click on a color and it'd be like red, and you'd like start using it, and it
Oh
was like
yeah.
spray paint, like brushes and stuff. And it was just like,
Was it Kid Picks?
I think so. It might have
Kid
been
Pick.
that.
Yeah. I remember Kid Picks. Yeah, I was way
Yeah.
into that shit. Um, Yeah, like in elementary school, you'd have like art class and you have like computer day. It's like sick. We're gonna do
Yeah.
kid pics. And I'm left-handed. Like when I draw, so I'd always
Hmm.
have to use the mouse with my left hand. Otherwise, it looked like shit. And I was like, guys, I swear I'm better than this. But yeah, kid pics is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny to just talk about that stuff because a lot of the times you realize when you talk to people, like we're all kind of just in like the same little world. Like we all kind of did this. You see stuff online where it's like we all live the same life or whatever, and it's just like pictures of things, and you're like, oh shit, I thought I was like the only one that was into that or whatever. Because you're little, you don't know.
Mhm.
You don't have social media. You're not posting on your story like kid pics today, like working on this.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
we have so many shared experiences and reactions to things. Um, yeah, like I always see the TikTok. Like I try, I don't like TikTok, but man, yeah, you see, TikTok has made me realize that even more because
yeah.
TikTok is really about like the commonality of people,
Nostalgia and stuff too.
Right. Yeah. So I've definitely picked up on more of that lately.
Yeah. Yeah, those kind of newer apps, like their whole, the whole content creation is based around like what's it like familiarity
relatability.
or something. Yeah, or like redoing things, you know, or like the biggest videos on TikTok are making a video about another video, you know. It's weird. It's like a weird idea how it works. Like the less original, the better, I think, on there. It seems like it's weird.
Yeah, like really iterative and reappropriative, and
Yeah.
it's kind of the style. There's the word again, but the style of it, yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Carson-esque in a way, or repurposing, remixing. Yeah,
Like people will just
wild.
voice over like I would never think to do this because I'd feel embarrassed, but people will just literally lip sync like to like a stand-up comedian as if they're making this joke up, and like everyone's like, that's hilarious, and it's so weird to me to see that.
Yeah,
I think that TikTok will be even more of a crazy, like we were talking about the Instagram, like, you know, if you want to look at it like in a history book, like people are gonna be like, what the hell? Like if you showed someone a video like 30 years of people doing like these crazy dances and stuff on like a weird app with like just weird shitty like music, it's gonna be crazy.
yeah. It's like a cultural phenomenon, I guess, that will definitely be like punctuated in history.
Mm-hmm. Because I also, it makes me feel TikTok and things like that. Like I think we're finally, like, how old are you?
24.
Okay, I'm 23, and I think that in like our age range, we're finally getting to the point where stuff is like becoming like younger for us or whatever. Like TikTok feels like I don't like work it as well as like other things, you know?
Yeah, I'm a little too old for it. Like, I really have to like Google what they're referencing.
Yeah.
Like, because I don't understand. I'm not really in it.
And now I get it. Like, of course, my grandpa doesn't know how to work like Instagram, you know, and he just will comment as if it's like I used to have like older relatives, like they'll comment as if they're messaging me, like, what are you doing next week? And I'm like, well, why are you just commenting this on a picture of a design? But like, it makes sense. Like the older you get, you realize like, man, like the time span you have of like being in the like cool or whatever, like the culturally like the right target age is probably like 5 years, you know. That's where everyone's marketing to, like that. Maybe TikTok skews younger, but apps like that, they're trying to really zone in on like a on one of the generations or whatever you want to call it. Like those are, I think it's like Gen Z or whatever. That's like, I think I'm like the first of that, or like the last millennial, whatever that is.
Mm-hmm.
Anything after that, it's really different versus like how millennials, everything they were targeting was like Facebook and LinkedIn and like, I don't know, like business and personal growth and stuff. And now it's like, do whatever you want, like have fun, like fucking dance. And like even Pepsi's going to make a TikTok about like off a trend, like big Fortune 500 companies. It's wild.
Yeah, it seriously is. One thing I've never understood, like why adults can't operate technology when adults are the one that make it. Maybe it's not that's the case, but like my parents can't like figure out how to like create a new email. Or I mean, they could, but it's like it would take them an hour.
Yeah.
But it's like that shit was made by people their age. I don't know. I just think it's an excuse by old people to like not handle technology. I just think they don't want to try.
Yeah.
But maybe that's like a really myopic way of looking at it. I don't know. I think it's weird, but maybe TikTok's being built by people younger than us, and that's why we can't figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good point though. They, you know, a lot of the audience that the thing is made for is made by people that age, and then the people that age are like, what the fuck's going on here? Like, what is this? Because you got to be like 30, probably someone that's developing like Gmail, right? Around that age, 25 to 30. But then there's people that are that whenever they were that age when that was coming out, they're like our parents' age, and yeah, they're like Luddites. They're like, nah, I'm done with email. Like,
yeah, and all this shit is also designed to be as easy as possible, but they still can't wrap their head around it because it doesn't open and close like a book. It's so wild. Like the shit on your screen is made to look like a switch. So turn it off, but they can't figure that out. They're like, oh, I needed to not make it turn green. Like their brain just doesn't even get it.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm going to eat my words and in 15 years, I'll have no clue how to work my phone. But I'm trying not to like fall into that camp, not go down that path.
It's funny because you know, I feel bad for, not feel bad for these big companies, but you know, there's these guys where their whole life is based around figuring out why this button should look that way versus another way. And they spend, you know, like UX design and all that. They spend millions of dollars on maybe one functionality within an app, and it can just go out and everyone's like, the hell's going on? No matter how much they tested it, they can't figure it out.
Yeah. I know. It's insane.
Like everyone was mad about how I agree with them too, but how they made all the Gmail like logos look the same. Like they changed like all the stuff like Gmail, Google Drive, everything looks the same now. It used to be more like different colors, and everyone was saying like that's bad. Like, yeah, it might look cool, like but it's like a form over function, you know, like it messed up the accessibility or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one of those ones where it might just be too hard to tell until you do it. I don't know. I mean, it's Google. Like, come on, you guys shouldn't really be messing up too much. But
yeah,
I get it though, because like you're trying to make them look like a family, and that's actually an ease of use feature that you're trying to create, but you end up undermining what made it work before. So yeah, I guess maybe it's if it ain't broke, don't fix it situation, but that's not how tech companies operate.
Yeah, they operate almost like if we don't change, everyone's going to forget about us. So let's update everything all the time.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to kind of circle back a little bit to some of the stuff you're doing with Works. I just wanted to ask you, how was it working on the Air Max Day stuff like that? Because obviously you haven't shared a lot in like the past year, but that was one thing I was looking at where I was like, damn, this looked like it was like really cool and fun.
That was cool. And it kind of came in as what seemed like maybe a smaller thing, but ended up just, it was kind of, it wasn't an under promise over deliver situation. It was just like a promise and then just maybe deliver more than what the ask was. And the ask was a main title for like the new Nike New York City Air Max Day like content for like this big production video they were making. And then it ended up being like, well, there's multiple segments in this video. I was like, well, okay, I'm gonna make all the we'll do all the titles for all those segments too, and let's just give them even more ammunition for this. So it was like stickers and icons, different motifs, colors, and all that stuff. So it was just kind of it could have easily been like a single image, and that was the final product of like what we did. But it was we saw it as like an opportunity to like do more cool stuff. Like, so really happy with how that one came out. And it's already leading to like more things. It's cool to get like a swoosh on your portfolio, you know, after however many years, like as much as you try not to think about it, it's like you get an apple or a swoosh on your portfolio. Like that's sick. It's just like a nice, I don't know. What's the word?
It's like an achievement or something in like a video game, you know, like a little badge.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. You finally unlocked the swoosh. So that was cool. Ultimately really happy with how that one came out. Cause also there was also like motion assets and like 3D assets. Like none of that was part of the ask, like the initial ask. Cause they had some stuff and we're like, okay, maybe let's just like beef it up. Let's just do more cool shit. And the part of you is like, I can share more now, you know, I can like, that's super cool. I don't just have to share one image. Now I can share like the icons and the 3D and the motion.
Like for the whole project. I think
it's totally fine. Yeah. To think about it that way. I don't think it's like reverse rationalizing in that sense of like, you're thinking about it backwards. I just think like take advantage of the opportunity.
Definitely.
That was a project where it felt like we're super excited to like make more. For many reasons, but I understand also like sometimes you just get work and you're like get in, get wet, get out, get paid, and be done with it. But yeah, no, that's kind of the story of that one. Is it came as a small thing and we tried to flush it out as much as we could.
That's cool. Yeah, so basically the final product initially would have kind of been like that title treatment with like the script and stuff and like the yellow and red, but then you just Yeah, because that's funny to hear that was that, but then because to me, like I really liked all the little expanded stuff, like with the type, with like kind of the CRT looking like stuff. Like I feel like I always would do that anyway if I worked on a personal project. Like how much like little things can I make it look like a bigger like project, even if it's all just made up, you know? So it's cool to see like you actually were able to do that and like expand on something like and kind of work it from different angles with someone as big as like Nike, you know?
Yeah, I think that's like a good thing to do, like with your projects, is like try to like David Rudnick talks about like there's work one and there's work two, and work one is what you deliver and work two is what you show for it. And they don't have to be the same. They're related, but they don't have to be the same. So there's a line between a client asks you for a logo and you try to make it look like you did an entire brand identity. Like you don't want to cross that line into like inauthenticity and like popcorn fluff shit that you're trying to make it look bigger than it is. But it's all, I think it's a really good exercise to round things out a little bit more, whether it's a personal project or a client project. Yeah,
for sure. And it also, you know, it invites clients to show that something that's maybe could just be a logo can expand into like this bigger thing, and maybe it'll get you a bigger project because you've shown like I can do bigger projects, not just one-off posters or whatever it may be.
Yeah, absolutely, that too.
Yeah. One last thing that I wanted to ask you before we'll get into the other like Q&A thing over on Patreon is that I heard you talking a little bit about because I reached out to you for when we were in Elliot's stream, and I was like, everyone was kind of talking. We were like, oh shit, like there's Roy, and he was kind of asking about like streaming and stuff. And have you put any more thought into that? Do you not think you're gonna do it? Because I know you mentioned something about like, I don't know, like maybe the process being shared is like it bothers you or whatever.
Yeah, there's a lot there.
Yeah.
I have not really put a lot of energy and like time into like making anything for Twitch. The idea intrigues me on multiple levels. One of just like learn something and get better at something, because I don't really understand Twitch that much.
Yeah.
The other side was cool, a personal project, finally like something to like really get excited about. And then third was that generational thing again, like find a way to connect and be a part of what is our generation of designers. Because I think Twitch is a cool way to do that. That's never been done before. And then that's one side of the teeter-totter. And then the other side for me is, and maybe it's terrible, maybe it's an ego thing, I don't like giving a huge look and glimpse into like how I do things. Because I feel like I've been burned before a little bit. And I do like the idea of maybe being like, maybe a bit more of a mystery. Like I don't necessarily need people to feel like we're a community. And I think community is great, but I just don't feel like that's where I am. We're like, you've got yours, Elliot's got his, there's Discords and there's shit. And I'm like, I feel like I have a hard time connecting people with people in the comments on my posts. So I don't know where I fall on that. I do like that air of mystique to it all, and maybe some level of inaccessibility. But I don't know if that gets you further. And it's not even about getting further. It's just more about like what I'm comfortable with. Sometimes I just want to like put my nose to the grindstone and just work and not really worry about the external stuff. But one thing I would like to do if I was going to do Twitch would be design my Twitch identity on Twitch, even if I don't use it. Like even I think that would be a cool thing for maybe younger designers or people that don't know anything about me to like get a sense of that without having to come up with a project for it. And I think that might be like an interesting insight for people. And I would have fun doing that. So if I do it, that's maybe would be the first plan of attack.
Yeah, and you can piece that out, you know, like today we're doing the overlays, tonight we're doing the little buttons at the bottom, you know, then now we're doing maybe the motion or whatever it may be. So I think it's like, it's kind of meta, you know, it's funny to be designing for it in there, but I think it's a good start, and it takes away one of the barriers of like, what am I even going to do on here once I'm live? That's where I feel with it. I don't know what to do once I get in there. I get like nervous talking to no one. At least when I pre-record stuff, I don't have to be there when people watch it.
Oh, I didn't even know you could pre-record. Okay.
No, like I just meant YouTube and stuff. That's why I do it that way. Okay. Yeah. But I think it's cool. I think you make a good point about there's two different kind of schools of thought with like, I like the community, but I also agree with you in the designing, like actually in the computer. I'm not worried about like being like ripped off or anything. But I do sometimes get like self-conscious, like, is my process too boring? Is this part like maybe not exciting for someone to watch? Or is this part like maybe like, I don't know, like, is this too like not how someone thought it was done or whatever? And I'm just like, I don't know. Like, I almost feel like I don't want to do a disservice to like my final product by someone thinking like watching the process not be as exciting or something like that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think in some ways that might be an advantage for me if I'm not really even worried about community building. Frankly, I don't give two fucks if people don't like it. Like, I'm trying to make something good and cool for me and right. So it's almost like a bit of a superpower. Like, if I was going to do that, I'm not trying to be like, hey, chat, what's up? And do all the like community, like we're going to vibe together shit. I'm just like, I'm going to do my work. And if you want to tune in for it, that's great. That I think that might be like the balance I have to strike, in order to not fall into worrying too much about all the shit we talked about with Instagram, the algorithms and yada, yada, yada. Just worry about the work, but also maybe do something nice for people, and be a little bit more accessible.
Yeah. And then maybe you'll still play your COD mobile on there every once in a while.
Yeah. Hell yeah. There's no structure to it whatsoever. You see my COD mobile?
We were just like, me and Elliot were looking at it. We were like, I wonder if Roy's ever streamed, and then it's just like COD Mobile. We were just like, that's classic.
Hell yeah. I love COD Mobile. I'm sick.
Hell yeah.
My brother play it.
Well, man, I'm really appreciate you coming on to talk to me, and I'm excited to see whatever you do, whether it be on Instagram, through your studio. If you start streaming, I think people will support it either way. And check out Roy Cranston on Instagram, and then check out the Patreon if you want to go a little deeper, and we're going to do a little Q&A. But yeah, thanks, man.
Beautiful. Thank you. This is really fun.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Peace out, everybody.